Hi and welcome to the tutorial on navigation points. There's a lot you can do with navigation points, and anyone making sessions should definitely be using them. So hopefully in this tutorial today you'll learn a little bit about them and you can use them in your upcoming sessions. So we've just created a new session in Kickstarter County. I'm going to use these tracks here to lay some track markers down and position our navigation points for a user to track their progression or tell them to go somewhere or unload or many other different commands you can show them with the navigation points. So let's place track markers. We'll put track marker, what do you got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We'll make this track marker 6. So we'll put 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Just so we can have them in a row and we can keep track of what we're doing in this demo. So it's 4. Track mark 3. Track mark 2. And you can use all sorts of objects, not just track markers. You can use triggers, you can use locos, whatever. You don't need to just have track markers to add navigation points to. You can add them to junctions, signals, junctions, and other vehicles themselves as well. So let's start off with putting something basic down. Navigation points. Let's just get a train first. Favorite, the Kenawa. We will put him on the first line here, and we'll go back to our track mark. So this is track mark 1. What we're going to get him to do is go to track mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's what our first navigation points are going to tell him. He needs to go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the easiest way to do that is to jump into our edit session rules, add a navigation display. Now what you'll see here is if you type in nav, you'll get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 navigation rules that we're going to run through and show you what each one of these do. And there's a 6th one which is not, well, it is named correctly, but it doesn't appear next to all the navigation rules here. And that one's called wait on navigation point. And that's another navigation rule that we're going to show you to use. And yes, you will want to use that one quite often because it's very handy. So let's get creating our navigation points to start off with. Navigation display is where you'll start. You'll add that rule. And once this rule runs, it will do the following. Let's edit it first and then we'll tell you how it all works. The unique set ID is the actual ID of this particular set of navigation points. So you can call this whatever you want, but this is how you will reference this navigation set. And we'll call it 1. You can call it nav1, you can call it whatever you want. We're going to call this one 1. So if we ever want to come back and use this navigation object or set, it's going to be called 1. You've got an option here to allow only a specific train to use these sets of navigation points, or at least see these sets of navigation points, and we'll show you how that works soon. Now what we're going to do, and the best way to do this, is if you've got a list of tasks that you want the player to do, you should put all your navigation points in one set. So for instance, we're going to go track marker 1, we're going to tell him to proceed forward to track marker 1. We're not going to put any display text in the first one, so it's going to come up blank. It'll just be the icon. And then the style is once he gets within a meter or so of this track marker 1, or this navigation point, this one here, we're going to automatically flick to the next one, because that's what we've set the style to. There's 3 sets of styles, and we'll explain them soon. Let's go to nav. We've put another nav point in, and we're going to make it show up at track marker 2. And we're also going to say proceed forward, and there's a whole bunch of other options you've got for the icons to show: proceed left, right, stop, turn around, load, unload, couple, decouple, and passenger stop. They're your options you can use as the navigation point icons. We're going to have proceed forward. And this time we're going to go, we'll put a bit of text in here and we'll just say continue forward, just so we can show the text working. And this one's going to be automatic as well. As soon as we get there and we touch it, the nav point's going to be set to complete and it'll disappear. The third one we're going to put in, which will be on track marker 3, we'll make this one the end final stop for now, because it'll get a bit long-winded if we keep going. So we'll make it a stop icon, and we'll say stop here is what we're going to tell the user as a little description under that icon, or on top of that icon, sorry. And the style is going to change now. We're going to manually, no, we're not going to manually, we're going to require a stop. So this navigation point requires the vehicle to actually come to a halt in order for it to complete. If it was set to automatic like the others, it's as soon as the player touches or gets within a certain radius, which is a very small radius of this navigation point, it completes. But we're going to change it to require stop. And that's going to require the vehicle to stop in order for this to complete. So we've got our set, which is 1. That's the unique name we've given it. And we've got 3 navigation points or phases in this kind of this operation or list of tasks that we want this person to do. So drive to track marker 1, drive to track marker 2, and then stop at track marker 3. Very simple. There's 3 options here which we'll also run through. The first one we're going to leave, which is the default one. It says all points must be completed in sequence. So he's going to get to this one, and then he's going to get to this one, and then he's going to get to this one. So there's nothing else he can do. He can't skip it. He has to do number 1 first. So let's go with this really simple approach, and we'll start our session up. We'll name it nav point. There we go. Now we've got a few things to show you, so we will be another probably 10 minutes or so at least going through everything. So there we go. The first navigation point, as you can see, has shown up at track marker 1, track marker 2 is here, and track marker 3 is here. It's saying proceed to that track marker, and as we move forward, you'll see it'll get within a certain radius, and it'll tick that one off. And see how you can see the next one? So it was a bit close there. It's already ticked it off. We've already got there. And you can see it shows the next one where we need to go to once we've reached our first one. And once we get to there, and because I guess the stop is within a certain distance, it shows the next one after that about half transparency, so you kind of get an idea of what's coming up. So let's speed up things so we can get to our destination. Stop. A bit further. Reverse. We get there, and that'll tick off, and now it wants us to stop there. Oh, too far. Let's go in there. And then, oh, sorry, I've missed that. Come back. Bit fiddly. We want to go there. Okay, so we go in, and what you'll find is it won't mark off this as soon as we get close to, because it requires a stop. So it's gone straight through and hasn't marked it off yet because it wants us to actually stop. If we stop within a certain radius of it, it should go, you've completed this. And there we go. So that one was style requires a stop, whereas the other ones were just automatic, so you just have to touch them whether you're moving or not, doesn't matter. So that's the first tutorial, or the first sort of tasks we were doing based on what was it? You have to do all the points in order. Now the next example we're going to show you, jump back to our rules, that was based on all points must be completed in sequence. if we go to this one, points will be completed in sequence but can be skipped. It means that the user doesn't have to do them in order. If they went straight to this one because they were allowed to and completed that, then it would just skip these two and say, well, there's no need to do these because you've already made it to where we wanted you to get to. So it's kind of a bit of freedom. Instead of making them go to each of these, we're just going to say, you can do these two, but the main goal is to make you stop here. So if you get to here before you do these two, then so be it. So that's that one. Points will be completed in sequence, but can be skipped. And we'll give you a bit of a demo on that one now. It will be a little bit quicker, since we won't be going to 2 points. We'll just go straight to the stop one. So it's saying, sorry, we are a little bit close there. It always gets the first track marker. Navigation point just because we're a little bit close. So let's move our train back just a little bit. There we go. Alright, that should help. Still not happy about that. It's an interesting one. Bear with us for a second. I'm sure there's something we're probably doing wrong. Track marker 1. Track marker 1, track marker 2. All points will be completed in sequence but can be skipped. Yes, that's fine. I doubt we're close enough still. But just for argument's sake, let's put it all the way back here. I see what it's doing there. It's actually showing you the closest track marker to yourself. So the distance away from that one, right. It's saying that's the closest one, and it's the one that's going to get you the furthest along your navigation points. So if we go to that one, if we did change this, see, it's telling you that one's now the closest, but if we change our junctions, it tells us that one is. I hope people understand that. If they don't, I can explain that again in the forums, but I've missed my... Oh, there we go, yep. So it's going to take us here, and these two are still in play, so if I didn't stop here, it would still give me the options to do these two navigation points as well, but because... Oh, go back. Because it's going to let me stop here, it'll then complete these two. There we go. So it's now taken those two away because I've completed the third navigation point. And now all navigation points are complete because we were able to do the third one whenever we wanted instead of following 1, 2, then 3. It might get a little bit confusing since I was so close together because Trainz tries to pick the best navigation point to go to based on distance and the track junctions. So if we would have spread them a bit further apart, you might have got a bit of a better understanding and wouldn't have seen them flicking between each other so frequent. Anyway, that one means you can do them in any order. Sorry, that you do them in the same order, but the points can be skipped. So that is quite handy if you don't really need them to do certain things, but it's kind of giving them a bit of an idea on where they need to go, like this is here. The next one is all points must be complete but any order. So all points must be completed but in any order. So if we bring that one up, and they show all of them at once, and again, not the greatest of positioning because as you can see there, they're all bunched up, but we can go and complete this one. Oh, I've missed it again. Jeez, I'm not very good at this, am I? Let's try again. Stop. That one. Go back. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. Hopefully. Probably missed it. There we go. So that one's complete, and it still means I need to do these two. So all of them need to be completed, but they can be done in any order. I won't go back and show you another example of the points will be completed in sequence, but can be skipped because it'll probably take another 5 minutes, and you don't want to sit here and watch me do it again. But just play around with that one. That one is quite handy because sometimes you just want them to get to a certain goal in your list, and you don't care about a couple beforehand. So that one is handy to use. The other thing that you want to look at is train optional. This one we're going to set to the Kennewa. So now, and we'll say all points must be completed in sequence. This is set to the Kennewa. Bit of a naming problem there. I think the ampersand might be playing up. Still, it's using that train. And this set of navigation points is now only for that train. And let's put in another set of navigation points and another train. Maybe a SD40. Throw the SD40 here. And we know that this is navigation point 6, 5, and 4. So what we'll do is we'll add in another navigation point. I can spell correctly, and we'll go navigation point 6, proceed forward, automatic, navigation point 5, proceed forward, and navigation point 4, proceed forward. And we won't give it, or we'll have to give it a name, so that'll be number 2. We won't give it a optional train yet, and I'll come back to that in a second. So now we've got one list, which is set 1, which is only for the Kennewa. Unfortunately, the name doesn't show up. There's the ampersand's definitely having the problem there. We'll make it, if we named it this, you'll see that the name come up. It's definitely the ampersand. So the Kennewa is selected for that, and it has track marker 1, 2, and 3 must be done in that order. And then everything else, which is global, like the first tutorial we showed you, example we showed you, this set is number 2, and all the sequence must be done in order at track marker 6, 5, and 4. Okay, so there's 2 sets in play now, and what you'll see is you should see track marker 1 is set 1, and it's saying we need to get to there first. Then it's also showing us track marker 6 because that's set 2, and then track marker 5, which is nav point 2 in set 2. So it's saying once you complete that, we'll end up going to here. Now, the Kennewa can see all of these because these ones are global. We didn't assign them to a train, but this one is not. This first set, which is set 1, is not global. So only when you've got this train focused will you see this navigation set because it's specific to this train. If I go and click on this train, you'll see that only the global one becomes active for the person playing the session using this vehicle. If I go back to this vehicle, it shows us that vehicle's specific navigation points. So that's very handy when you only want them to show for certain vehicles that the user has focus on. Again, if we drop out of here and we make navigation set 2 specific to the Santa Fe, like that, you'll now see that each set is specific to those particular vehicles. So the Kennewa won't see set 2, and Santa Fe won't see set 1. So there we go. Kennewa sees set 1, Santa Fe sees set 2, and they don't see the other ones. So that's very handy as well, a thing to make the screen less cluttered, and also only show the navigation points you need to show when the person has the specific vehicle selected. Now, let's see what other things we can do based on finding out the status of each navigation point. We have nav set 1 and nav set 2. So you've worked out how to create navigation points and have them marked off with either automatically as they get close to it, or requiring a stop. So the vehicle has to come to a stop for the navigation point to be ticked off. What you haven't looked at yet is manual. And manual we'll go through now. What we'll do is we will say on track marker 1, we now want to require a stop. And we'll make it manual. And we'll leave this last one as required stop, but we're only going to really be focusing on track marker 1. So the Kennewa is still specific. This navigation set is still specific to the Kennewa, and track marker 1 requires a stop, and that stop's going to be manual. We're going to check it ourselves in another set of rules. Otherwise, if you go ahead and try and stop your train when this status is set to manual, it's going to do nothing. It's waiting for your rule to tell this set of navigation points when navigation point 1 in set 1 is to be complete. So what we're going to do is we're going to what's the best way to do this? Let's put a trigger in, because you need to tell when something's happening. So what we might do is we'll put a trigger in. Just trying to think of an example that you guys might want to use in your routes. We'll do this for now. Trigger 1. So there's now a trigger there, and we're going to pretend this is a station. So what we'll do is we'll say trigger 1, and we're going to make this a passenger stop. And we will go to here, change this icon to a passenger stop. So now trigger 1 is going to be a passenger stop. We're going to say stop, passenger stop. Don't have to put any text here if you don't want to. I'm just going to put that in. And we'll leave it at that for now. And what's going to happen is when the trigger, so we'll put an on trigger rule, trigger check. Sure, trigger once only. On trigger 1, except the Kennewa. So this trigger will fire when the Kennewa goes into it, and then once it fires, we're going to check that the train has stopped, which again, we can trigger once. It's the Kennewa. And once the Kennewa gets here within the trigger point, we're going to say navigation point complete. That's the next rule we're going to look at. So once the Kennewa gets to this trigger and stops, we're going to mark off navigation point 1 in navigation set 1. So navigation point 1 in navigation set 1. We're going to mark this off. We're going to say that's complete at that point. Okay, so when the we'll just explain a bit more. When this guy, the Kennewa, comes in, hits the trigger, and actually stops, we're going to mark the navigation point that is bound to track marker 1. We can put it wherever we want. It doesn't matter. It's not anything to do with the track marker. We'll put the track marker up here. As long as the Kennewa stops around here and within the trigger, this track marker, the navigation point attached to this track marker is going to go away. Okay? So let's try that now. Save that. So it says passenger stop. Wants us to stop up here. Let's pretend this is the entire passenger station. And we get our Kennewa. We come along. And we'll hit the trigger soon. when we stop, actually the trigger's about there somewhere. As long as we actually stay within the trigger, we should be okay. And then it will make this navigation point go away because we've told it to. And of course, there we go. Maybe we weren't in the trigger point. It must have been just outside the trigger point. So that's doing it manually. You can certainly do it required stop in that particular instance. Just say we wanted to make the passenger stop have a 30-second wait or something, we could put a wait in there. So if we throw that up there and we put we want a 120 seconds, for instance, 2-minute wait at the passenger stop, and then we'll mark that navigation point off. So then the Kenilworth would come in, it would stop here, and it would have to wait 2 minutes, and then that navigation point would go away. So another example of that also is to change the message as well. If we did have a 1:20 stop, we'll just change it to 30 seconds just so we don't take too long with the tutorial. So it comes in, it stops, it waits 30 seconds. We probably don't need these in here. It waits 30 seconds, and then it marks that navigation point off because the navigation point is set to manual. So what we might do is change this up a little and go, we're going to put track marker, we're going to put 2 navigation points. The first one's on track marker 1, and it says it's a passenger stop, and we'll also make the second one a passenger stop. So they're both using track marker 1, number 1, point 1 and point 2. And the first one we're going to make requires a stop, and the second one we're going to say wait, or we'll say passengers boarding. If I could spell boarding. So this one says passenger stop requires a stop. This one's a manual one, so passengers boarding. And when the passenger finished boarding, we will mark this navigation set point 2 off. Okay, so we're taking control of this one and telling the navigation set when we want navigation point 2 to disappear. So down here we will go. We don't need the stop anymore, so we can get rid of that stop rule, because in here we're going to get to track marker 1 and it's going to require a stop. Once we stop, we will put a rule in here. This is this wait on navigation point. This is a new rule we're using. It says wait for navigation point 1 in set 1 to be complete. So when we get to this trigger, it'll wait on this rule, and once navigation point 1 in set 1 is complete, because the passenger, we've stopped at that navigation point, this will move on to navigation point 2 to display fully, but we need to take ownership of that and make sure we know when it's going to be complete. We'll make the call there, and how we're making the call is when the Kenilworth gets within the trigger, we check that navigation point 1 in set 1 is complete, so we have stopped, and then we wait for 30 seconds and mark point 2, which is the manual one now, in set 1 off. And we don't even need the trigger at this instance, because, and that's the beauty about navigation points, is this here waits for navigation point 1 in navigation set 1 to be complete. It's not going to, this isn't going to fire, these rules are not going to fire until this navigation point is marked complete, and it's only marked complete when we stop at the station. So that's a great way of using navigation points without having to worry about triggers and manual stop rules. So we can even remove this trigger now. Then we'll move our station stop, or our track marker, but that's where our station, our passenger stop's going to show up. If we run that, it's just a way of cutting things down without triggers and other rules. Navigation points do allow you to do a lot of this stuff. So we'll go along, and because navigation point 1 in navigation set 1 is waiting for us to stop, we come along here. Oh, and I've derailed. Well done. Sorry about that. Let's move the cannois to the same line that this is on. There we go. So I'm going to come along, and it's going to require me to stop. And then once I stop, it's going to, that rule where it says wait for navigation point 1 in set 1 to complete, it's going to fire, and then it's going to wait 30 seconds. You'll see the text change once I stop to say passengers boarding, because then it's moved on to navigation point 2 in set 1. So we stop. Passengers boarding, it's now showing navigation point 2, and it's waiting 30 seconds. And after 30 seconds, this is going to go away, and it should move on to our next navigation point, which is next to us here. So we're waiting. Well, I might speed it up. I'm not sure how many seconds we've got left, but there you go. So we've finished our boarding, and then it shows the next navigation points to use. So that's another handy way of using the navigation points to create your gameplay, and you determine when things can be done. So that's why the status of these are very important. Obviously, it requires stop, it requires the vehicle to stop. Manual, you handle yourself. And the way we handle this is by using this particular rule, which says wait on a navigation point to either be complete. In this case, sorry, wait on the navigation point to be complete. So we're waiting on point 1 in set 1 to be complete, and that rule will not fire any of its children, whatever you put in there, until that is complete. That's a very handy rule to know. What other rules can we look at? Navigation point complete, we did look at here, yes, because we marked off point 2. So this one you use to mark off manual rules. You tick them off yourself. Navigation set check. This one checks. It's like wait on navigation point, but this if you're wanting to know if a certain set checks if a navigation point set 1, for instance, is complete or incomplete. So this might be handy. You'd need to work out when you want to use it, but in your set of rules, you might want to find out if all of navigation set 1's complete and do something, or all of navigation set 2 is complete and do something, or if it's incomplete. If the user hasn't completed all the navigation points yet, you might want to show a message or take some points away or something like that. So that's a good one to do as well, and you can obviously put that at any point in your hierarchy. Then we've got navigation set clear. This one basically just clears a navigation set. So if you've got all your points showing on this one here, sorry, let's do this one. All your points showing on this one here, and at the time that they get to the passenger stop, we wait 30 seconds and we would clear set 2. So it's saying we've now got set 2 being shown for everyone, and what we're going to say is once that passenger stop happens, we're going to just clear set 2. So that just clears an entire set, just in case, for instance, you want to get rid of it for some reason. I'm sure there's good reasons. Right now I can't think of one, but it's definitely been used in the past. So we come up to here, we do our passenger stop. You can see that they're still active, and just say you were allowing someone to stop at any station. There was a whole bunch of rail lines or platforms here, and these are all saying passenger stops as well. You could get them to stop here and then clear these ones out as soon as the boarding process is finished, or whenever they stop at one of the platforms. So you'll see these disappear now after it gets to 30 seconds, and that set is now cleared. So there's another way of removing some of the navigation points you might have put in. It's much easier to manage a whole set of navigation points than making one navigation point display per navigation, not one navigation point rule or navigation display rule per point. You want to put as many points in a set as possible because it's a lot easier to manage that way. Another rule, I think the final rule, is show hide that we'll show you today. This one will hide or show as a navigation set. So what we'll do is we'll say hide navigation set 2. You got to load it in first before you hide it, so we'll put it down 1. So instead of this showing straight away, it's going to hide it. It'll create it and then hide it. And then in here, instead of deleting it, we're going to show it. So show navigation set 2. So this is another way of hand-holding, well, not hand-holding, demoing a path for people to go to, or just giving them navigation points at certain times. You might want them all to show up at once, so you just kind of drip feed it out when you need it. So you can hide them, or you can even actually drag that in to be created at that point. But it's not a bad idea to create them at the start and just hide them. That's a good way of doing it as well. So what we'll see now is when we go in here, that our navigation points for track marker 6, 5, and 4 over here are hidden. They're not showing. As we go into here and we stop at the station, we wait 30 seconds. Hopefully we're close enough. Yep, boarding, passing boarding. Sorry, I haven't. It should say passengers boarding. I've completely missed that. And then after that stop, these will show because we've told the navigation set to show. There you go. Those 3 have now shown. So I hope that's given you a bit more information on navigation points and how to use them. That the navigation point wait on navigation point complete. Just want to bring that one and list that again because that one is definitely a handy one that you want to use. This one right here, wait on navigation point, because you can put that anywhere and literally wait for any of your objectives in your navigation points to complete, and then fire additional things off. So that's a very handy one to keep in mind. But if you've got any other questions about navigation points, let us know in the forum, in the Trainz channel forum, and we'll answer them either with a comment or we'll make a new video if it requires. Anyway, thanks for watching.